I never thought a simple Thursday evening could unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. But there I was, sitting in the corner of a dimly lit cafe across the street from the restaurant where my wife, Vanessa, was meeting her boss, Greg. At first, it seemed like harmless curiosity. After all, I'd always trusted Vanessa. She was the kind of person who made loyalty feel like a natural instinct, not a choice. Or at least, that's what I had believed. I didn't mean to be suspicious. But the past few months had been off. Vanessa came home later than usual, often with vague excuses about extra work or networking dinners. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek, but sometimes I caught a flicker in her eyes, a hesitation, a shadow I couldn't identify. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking, that I was the paranoid husband everyone jokes about. Then Greg entered the scene. Vanessa's boss had always been charming, maybe a little too charming. She'd laughed at his jokes at the company retreat last month, lingering on his every word. I brushed it off, thinking it was nothing, just workplace camaraderie. But Thursday changed everything. I parked 2 blocks away, slipped into the cafe, and ordered a coffee I didn't intend to drink. My hands were shaking, and I could feel my heartbeat like a drum in my chest. I watched through the window as Vanessa and Greg sat at a small table, their heads close together. Greg leaned forward, speaking in that smooth, insinuating tone that made people feel like he was the only person in the room. Then it happened. Greg reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair behind Vanessa's ear. She didn't pull away. She laughed softly, almost flirtatiously, her eyes locking with his in a way that made my stomach twist. I wanted to scream, run across the street, confront them. But I froze, numbed by a mixture of disbelief and horror. I had seen enough. My trust, my love, the life I thought we shared. It all felt like it was collapsing in real time. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Vanessa greeted me at the door, her smile casual, unaware that I had witnessed something that would change everything. "Hey, honey," she said, pulling me into a hug. I held her for a moment, feeling the weight of what I knew pressing down on me. "Hey," I murmured, keeping my voice calm, betraying nothing. Inside I was seething. But I didn't confront her, not yet. I needed control. I needed to understand the full extent of what had been happening. The next few days were hell. I watched Vanessa carefully, noting every little change. Her texts, her phone calls, the subtle shift in her tone when she spoke to me. I set up a small camera in our home office, pretending it was for security, but really I just needed proof. I told myself it was not about revenge yet. It was about clarity. Then came the moment that confirmed my worst fears. I was home earlier than usual, claiming a sudden headache, when I found her in our bedroom on a video call with Greg. The way she leaned in, laughed, and touched her lips with her fingers. It was intimate, unmistakably flirtatious. My heart shattered into pieces I didn't even know existed. I left before she noticed me, walking the streets late into the night, replaying every memory, every word, every smile she had given me. It all felt like a lie. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream. Part of me wanted to forgive, part of me wanted to burn everything down. I decided then that I would confront Greg first. Not Vanessa, not yet. He was the source of this, the person who had crossed boundaries, the predator in a suit. I found his number through LinkedIn. He wasn't expecting a call. "Greg," I said, my voice cold. "We need to talk." He sounded surprised, then dismissive. "Oh hey. What's up, man? I saw what you were doing with my wife," I said simply. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but if you value your career, you'll stay out of our lives." There was a pause. Then his tone shifted, nervously polite. "Look, I think you're overreacting." "I'm not," I interrupted, feeling the adrenaline surge. "I have proof. Every interaction, every message. This isn't a joke, Greg. One wrong move and your professional life is over. I'll make sure of it." He laughed nervously, a bark that didn't reach his eyes. "You're serious." "Deadly serious," I said, letting the words hang like a guillotine. That night I didn't sleep. I thought about confrontation, about the betrayal that had seeped into the foundations of my marriage. I thought about Vanessa's smile, the warmth of her hand in mine, the years of shared memories, and how fragile it all really was. The next morning, I acted with calculated precision. I sent an anonymous tip to the HR department at her company, including screenshots, emails, and timestamps of the flirtations, the intimate exchanges, everything Greg had tried to hide. I didn't know if Vanessa would find out yet, but I didn't care. I needed justice. Then I confronted her. I waited until she returned from work, pretending nothing had changed. She walked in, cheerful, oblivious. "Vanessa," I said, my voice neutral. "We need to talk." She frowned. "About what?" I gestured to the living room. "Sit." Her smile faltered, and she took a seat. Something in her eyes shifted, a premonition of dread. "I know about Greg," I said, letting the words sink. "I know about the flirting, the calls, the way he's been trying to cross boundaries." She froze, her hands clutching the edge of the sofa. "Az. Don't," I interrupted. "I saw everything. I watched, I waited, and I know the truth." Tears welled up in her eyes, but not the remorse I had hoped for. There was fear, yes, but also anger. You were spying on me?" "Yes," I said, voice steady. "And now, you're going to face the consequences." She shook her head, voice trembling. It wasn't." "Stop. It doesn't matter why. It matters that it happened. It matters that trust was broken. And it matters that I am not someone you can manipulate." Her body slumped, and for the first time, I saw the human cost of betrayal reflected in her own eyes. I didn't feel triumph, only the hollow ache of a love I thought would last forever. Over the next few days, the fallout was swift. HR called her in, questioned her, and Greg was suspended pending an investigation. Vanessa came home, trying to explain, to apologize, to salvage something that could no longer exist. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not ever, perhaps. I realized something essential in that moment. Betrayal changes people. It doesn't just break trust. It fractures the very identity of who you thought you were. I was no longer the naive husband who believed in unquestionable loyalty. I was someone else. Someone wary, calculating, and fiercely protective of my own dignity. I gave her the choice. She could stay, face the consequences, and try to rebuild what she had destroyed, or she could leave. She wanted to stay, claiming she loved me, claiming it was a mistake. But I couldn't live in a house built on deceit, no matter how much I loved her. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I packed her things, calmly, methodically, as if my own composure could anchor the chaos in my heart. She cried, begged, and pleaded. I stayed silent because words felt meaningless. Actions, I realized, were the only truth left. When she left, I sat alone in the living room, the emptiness echoing around me. I felt a strange mixture of grief and relief, a sorrow for the life that could have been, and a strange liberation from the shackles of deceit. Weeks later, I heard that Greg had been fired. Vanessa had been suspended for a month, her career hanging by a thread. And me. I was left to rebuild, to process the betrayal, to redefine what love and trust meant. I'll admit, there were nights I wanted revenge, nights I imagined the most cruel ways to make her feel the pain she caused me. But in the end, I realized revenge is hollow, it doesn't heal. What matters is reclaiming your life, reclaiming your dignity, and refusing to let someone else dictate your worth. I never looked back. I never called her. I never sought closure in words. The proof, the consequences, and the knowledge that I had survived, that was enough. Sometimes late at night I think about Vanessa. I remember her laugh, the way her hand fit in mine, the promises we made. And then I remind myself that those memories belong to the past, and the past is exactly where they belong. I learned something essential in the aftermath. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it teaches you who you really are. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in punishment. It's in surviving, thriving, and refusing to let another person define your story. The house feels quieter now, emptier, but also freer. I pour my energy into myself, my work, my passions. And when I walk past the cafe where I first saw them together, I don't feel anger anymore. Feel clarity. Feel power. Feel a life reclaimed. Because in the end, that's what betrayal really teaches you. Not how cruel someone can be, but how resilient you are, and how fiercely you can rise from the ashes of someone else's deception. And that, I realize, is the only revenge I ever needed.